Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Weiner Wellness Center Fall Fiesta Wellness Week. We're excited to get started with this first day here. We've had an amazing morning. I was able to catch Jamie, Tracy Straub, and Dr. Orbach this morning with the morning commentary, just talking about what's going on for the week. Again, we are at a virtual wellness week, so we thank you all for participating, and we're glad that we're able to do it this way. Unfortunately, we do wish we could see everyone at the clinic, but for now we're making do with what we can, and we are doing it virtual, and that's just fine because we can share these videos with many more people, get a bigger outreach, and that's really our goal. No matter what the circumstances are, our goal is to educate to as many people as we possibly can. And I think Dr. Weiner would be very proud of all of this and really excited at the same time, although frustrated with everything that's going on, because he always said if he ever won the lottery, he would host a TV show, a TV program, and just talk, like his talk shows, talk, educate, and be able to connect with people in a different way. And they always say you could tell a lot about someone by the way they spend their money. And that was a great thing. Like, he poured so much into the radio, 35 plus hours a week, this wellness week that's this full page long of all these speakers. So this is what we're doing all week, and this is what I'm really excited for. We had Dr. Honigman talk this morning. He's always very thorough, very great, talking about stress, and that's something we can all relate to, honestly. And then we had Dr. Orbach just on before this. I was on with him, so I got to pay attention to the whole thing, and he talked about chiropractic and really just how important it is. And then we had Judy Mikovits on. She struck out Tracy, and she was able to speak for 2 hours today. So we're so lucky to have her. She's been through a lot. She's very educated. She's a scientist, and just so informative. So if you missed that one, go ahead back and catch that. But today, right now, we're looking at healthy gut, happy body, focusing on probiotics, and I put together this PowerPoint here to get more in detail, talk about all this here, and let's get started. So healthy gut, happy body. Why did I title it that? Because they go hand in hand. And if you've heard of the gut-brain connection, that explains a lot, and you'll see a lot of the connections throughout this PowerPoint. So since we are live on Facebook now, if anyone has any comments as I'm speaking, I'm checking it right here, and I'm able to see if anyone is asking questions or just comments about anything. So I see some people are joined on here, got it on ready. So let me know if you have comments, questions, or anything else. So we look at probiotics, and just understanding that word is a really good place to start. So probiotic means good bacteria, and the human intestines contain hundreds of thousands of different species of intestinal bacteria. So that's good bacteria. We hear a lot about the bad bacteria in the body, yeast, overgrowth of bacteria. And that's all like the issues that we look at and talk about. But what we really need to focus on at the same time is the good bacteria, making sure we're taking our probiotics because they serve so many good functions in the body, including supporting the immune system, the digestive tract, of course, increasing resistance to infection, supporting the immune system, and also the brain, your neurotransmitters, your mood, all of that. So it all ties in, and it's a really important topic here to just address and make sure that we're aware of, because it's really the root of so many different things. So you'll see a lot of things in here looking at lactobacillus, bifidobacterium. These are some of the main species of probiotics that we'll look at, working on the digestive tract, serving to just make sure we have that good bacteria, that good microflora. Then we look at probiotics and brain health. So the gut-brain connection, that's a thing. It's really like, you may have also heard of your second brain. So we have that, and it can link to things like anxiety, stomach problems, and vice versa. So we think about the saying, the gut-wrenching feeling or experience where certain situations or conversations thoughts can make you feel nauseous, or if you've ever felt butterflies in your stomach, we think of that as a good thing. Whether you're nervous for a performance or you are nervous around a certain person, typically that's a good thing. Maybe when you first meet a significant other, you'll feel that. Parents with children, who knows what it is. But we know it's real. We've all experienced that in some way, one way or another. So we use these expressions for a reason. So the gut wrenching, even though it's a thought, it kind of makes you sick to your stomach. That's another one that we hear a lot. So the GI tract is very sensitive to emotion, and that's all things: anger, anxiety, sadness, elation. All of these things and many more can trigger symptoms in the gut. So it's really important to focus on that. Neurotransmitters are formed in the gut. So we found, and that there's a lot of science behind this, a lot of research and studies looking at bacteria actually producing neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. And if you're not familiar with those exactly, all of them play a key role in your mood. So they're kind of the things we think about in your brain, but they're actually formed by bacteria in the gut. So they help people with, looking at changes in mood, depression, anxiety, all things like that. So whenever they're at a good balance, it regulates that, and it circulates and crosses through the blood-brain barrier and gets things into a good balance. So sometimes we'll do things that are a quick fix, whether it's a drug, anti-anxiety, antidepressants. We hear about those a lot, and people use those as a quick fix because they can't contain the state of mind that they're in, and it really affects their everyday life. So we look at that and really just focus on different ways to benefit from it. So let's make sure you can see the screen here. Then we look at, on another end, probiotics and immune health. And I've been hearing this a lot lately, I think because there's been so much talk about the immune system lately, and with everything going on, that 70 to 80% of your body or of your immune system is formed in the gut. So whenever you have poor gut flora, your immune system is compromised. And Jamie and I were just discussing this the other day on here, if you saw the video, and we were just looking at how whenever your immune system is compromised, you're typically not taking probiotics, or you have some sort of autoimmune issue. So once you build up the immune system, in terms of focusing on the gut, so once you build up the gut, the immune system improves. You see a difference in that. So there's been studies, again, so this is science, looking at in animals and humans, showing immune stimulating effects from different things, like I mentioned before, the lactobacillus and other probiotics, giving that benefit. So they can increase the activity of several types of white blood cells, which we know manage our immune system. And there's a direct correlation there. So again, microorganisms live in the walls of your digestive tract. They encounter millions of other microorganisms, and we say that your probiotics are like a fingerprint or a thumbprint on your body, and that really is one thing that can make you different from another person. And I've even heard different things where if you've done, there's some science behind, if you look at the probiotics, the gut flora between someone who's overweight and someone who's at a healthy weight, their bacteria levels are different. So there's much more bad bacteria in an overweight person, yeast feeding sugar, or sugar feeding yeast. It goes both ways, where you'll have those cravings, or it's just feeding onto each other. So you don't really have a stable foundation. We'll talk about foundations a little bit more, of course, because it's me and that's what I always focus on. But you're just seeing a direct correlation here between the immune system. So here's just some other things that emphasize why probiotics are so beneficial. So there's studies on probiotics looking at countering the effects of toxic metal exposure, which, when we look at toxic metals, I think we all jump to the heavy metals, not precious metals. People typically don't have an issue with those. It's the heavy metals, the exposure to that can cause problems, can cause autoimmune issues, depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. And probiotics have been shown in studies, you'll see some of them listed here, showing a positive effect. Also, probiotics might help lower cholesterol. That's been done in a study looking at a lactobacillus culture. Probiotics might help dental cavities and periodontal disease. Yes, that's true. So we've heard from some dentists that we've had come speak with us before. I don't think virtually, but definitely at the Weiner Wellness Center, actually live. They've been there before, talking about reversing cavities and things like that. And I've heard it recommended before that you could break open like the Frontier Biotics and make a paste and use it if you have an infection or something going on. So periodontal disease is definitely something that's common for people. So probiotics are a great way to combat that, rather than a medication, which can cause more of a bacteria problem, antibiotics, where you're killing off not only the bad bacteria, but the good bacteria as well. So that's where we run into an issue. So what we'll look at is our host of what we have here, Frontier Biotics, Superbiotics, SBC, and Probzyme. So these are our foundations here at Nutritional Frontiers in terms of probiotics. The Frontier Biotics is something that I take every day just to get a good balance of probiotics. I don't typically have, candida issues or a compromised immune system. I don't have any autoimmune things, weight issues, anything like that. So Frontier Biotics is what works really great for me. Superbiotics might be something that you would take if you've been on an antibiotic or if you're on a certain program. Jamie Dorley shared with us yesterday, he could tell a difference right away when he stops taking it versus once he gets back on it. And it really helps boost his, boost a lot of things, his mood, energy. He could notice a difference in his waistline. So that's something that he always shares because it's so powerful. You can feel those differences. We have the SBC, which is the Saccharomyces boulardii, and that is really beneficial when we're looking at pulling out bad bacteria as well as repopulating. So if you do a program, say, where you're removing yeast from the body or killing off yeast in the body, you'll still have it in there. So it's a really good chelator where it actually attaches to that bad bacteria and pulls it out. So it can be really beneficial. And then Probzyme, which is something that I always have. I always keep my little bottles filled up here and use them after I eat a meal that might not have been, that might cause some stomach upset or anything like that. So these are our foundational probiotics, and I'll go into them a little bit deeper. But we also want to look at the Great Pyramid of Health. So this is the supplement pyramid that I really influenced with us, and really just like to focus on this. And I emphasize this because I always do, because it's my foundations. It's what I always look at. And it's how I make recommendations to other people, no matter where they are. So whenever we look at this, you'll see the base. Of course, it's our foundation, which we talk about nutrition, which plays into this, hydration, a little bit as well, movement, not just exercise, but movement throughout the day, sleep, elimination, and emotional wellness, which is tying in as well. So that's your foundation, making sure that those are all in line. Those are all key points here. But the base in terms of supplements and what we're focusing on is probiotics and enzymes. So we have Superbiotics, SBC, Frontier Biotics, what I just mentioned here, Probzyme, focusing on the probiotics here. We also tie in the enzymes to help with digestion, and that's more looking at going along with the food that we're putting into our body. But before that, we just have the probiotics. So that's a really good foundation. And then we add in the other things to just nutrify the body. And then at the very top here, you see the wellness solution. So that's where, if you were just listening to Dr. Orbach speak, someone asked about bone on bone, a condition like that. So it might be arthritis, it might be just joint pain. And what we would recommend is making sure that your foundations are in line first. For example, especially focusing on the essential fatty acids and making sure that we're reducing inflammation in the body, and then focusing on wellness solutions, condition-specific formulas, like he had mentioned the HA+, because once your foundations are in line and your gut's able to absorb things and you don't have leaky gut anymore, things aren't leaking out, it's going to work a lot better. So I always look at this here, focus on the foundations, and that's the key place to start. So we'll get right into the rest of the probiotics. We have the Frontier Biotics, looking at non-dairy probiotics in a vegetarian capsule. And this is really important. And for me, it's not something that I focused too much on before, just based on not really needing to be concerned with it, because, for example, I don't have an issue with dairy, but I have a lot of friends who are maybe lactose intolerant or just sensitive to dairy in general. So non-dairy is really key. It's not derived from milk. It's a fermented probiotic containing beneficial microorganisms to support your digestive health, your immune health, your microbial balance. And it does that because it contains 6 billion CFUs of 10 different microorganisms and strains per capsule. So the CFUs, 6 billion of them, that's colony forming units, and that's the way that probiotics are measured. So we have those, the 10 different strains. I'll get into those next, actually. And we just look at probiotics supporting digestion, immune health, regularity. We've talked about that. And it doesn't contain any FOS, which is, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. It's a long word meaning prebiotics. So we get prebiotics through our diet by fiber, but sometimes people can be sensitive to that. It can cause diarrhea or throw off your regularity of your bowel movement. So we don't add any FOS in there, but if you're someone who needs it, I would just recommend adding more fiber to your diet, but we're not going to put it in our probiotics for the reason that some people could be sensitive to it. So these are the probiotic strains here. These are the, it's like the genus and the species and the number here. So these are all trademarked ingredients through Danisco, which is the largest producer of probiotics in the world, has the most studies done behind them. So if you see these with like the LA14 or the BIO4, like 2 letters and a dash and the numbers after, you know it's a good probiotic strain. And basically what all of these are showing, different things, they all have their special little things that they're good at or known for, separate them apart, but they're really doing the same things, surviving the intestinal tract, their survival in intestinal conditions like high acidity or bile. They adhere to the intestinal wall. They restore microbiota after antibiotic therapy, reduce inflammation. So I'm just naming some of these things that these strains do. Again, adhere to the intestinal wall, survives acid and bile, anti-inflammatory and immune regulatory effects. So whenever we're looking at these probiotic strains for the gut, it's addressing what's going on in the immune system as well. So it's really good that we're seeing these types of things in these studies, found naturally in fermented meat, milk, and vegetables. We know fermented foods are really good for us. Survives well in the human intestinal tract. So these are just really good strains. And then again, if you've noticed in the images that we showed for the regular probiotics, not mixed with the enzymes, but we put them in the blue glass bottles because that prevents light and air exposure from getting in, which can deteriorate the life of the probiotics. So these are living probiotics and we want them to stay alive. So it helps if you put your bottle in the refrigerator, which I would probably have my Frontier Biotics sitting right next to me to show you, but they're in my fridge downstairs. And the Superbiotics, the SBC, they're good if you put them in the fridge after you open them, but they do come in the blue glass bottle. So even if you're keeping it in your cabinet, if it's a cool temperature, if you don't live at the beach and it's not really warm in your house, then you should be okay. So then next we can look at a stronger probiotic, our superbiotics. Again, non-dairy, it's going to be all the same, except it's going to have 50 billion CFUs and 12 different strains per capsule. And then another thing that says you're guaranteed at expiration date. So a lot of times, whenever you look at a probiotic or whenever you look at any product, you'll see a lot and expiration date on here. And what that does is it tells you whatever's listed on the supplement facts is going to be in that bottle. A lot of companies do that at manufacture date. So if it says there's 50 billion CFUs, it'll be at manufacture date. Ours is guaranteed at expiration. So if you put that in there 2 years before the expiration date, it's going to be higher. So the newer the probiotic bottle you can find, the higher strength it's going to be. It's not going to be that much different. Might be 60 billion when it's created, but at expiration it will still be 50 billion guaranteed. So that's something that Nutritional Frontiers does to just emphasize quality and all of that. Then we have the SBC, which I mentioned before. This is a really good one if you have been on an antibiotic, if you've had diarrhea, if you've been traveling. Typically, if you have some sort of parasite or bug that you're not, used to, if you've been in a different area, that can happen. So this is really good at pulling that out. It's very similar to Florastor on the market, but if you actually look at these studies here, this has shown, if you look at you see the chart, but if you look at the bottom, that's the results from this study. So 10% better improvement of ease of evacuation, so better bowel movements, 20% improved fecal consistency, 30% intestinal regulation, and 20% decrease of menstrual disorders, which is another bonus to this. But this was compared to Florastor, so that those percentages there is how much better than it was compared to Florastor. And this was just in a 7-day period of daily intake. So this was about probably, I'd say, 5 to 10 billion, or even lower, probably about 5 billion CFUs of the Saccharomyces boulardii. And what we add in as well is the Saccharomyces boulardii and the Bifidobacterium lactis. So you're getting an added probiotic in here, as well as that part to help pull it out of the body. So then we move to one of my favorite products I just showed you, Probzyme. So this has 6 strains of probiotics with 6 different digestive enzymes. Again, non-dairy, no artificial flavors, nothing bad in it, nothing here that you don't want. It has the different probiotics that are listed here, enzymes. These are amazing enzymes. And this product works really great. For me, just if you get like a stomach ache after you ate something, or sometimes I eat a little bit too fast. Normally, if I'm just in between stuff, I'll eat really quick. It can help with those. It can also improve if you have indigestion, heartburn, or acid reflux. And that's especially great because, like I said, it's a chewable. So it really starts to digest in your mouth, and the product starts to work in your upper GI tract, which we know runs from, starts in the mouth and the throat, your esophagus. So that can be where some problems start, rather than just taking an enzyme that digests in the gut and having to deal with that. So a chewable is a really great option, also for gas and bloating, stomach pain, constipation, diarrhea, and just poor digestion overall. And if you have trouble swallowing pills, you don't have to worry about it with this. It's a much better option. So in summary, if you're wondering, oh man, that's 4 probiotics, what do I take? You could start with the Frontier Biotics if you don't really have any complaints or issues. It's a really great daily probiotic. If you've been on an antibiotic, I definitely recommend the Superbiotics. If you've been having diarrhea, or were on, again, an antibiotic or on a Candida protocol, you could take the SBC. and very similar to the frontier biotics. Maybe if you have more digestive issues, gas, bloating, you could take the Probzyme. So this is really looking at supporting the gut, looking at what's going to be beneficial for your foundation here. So you have these options. And then I want to talk a little bit more about that gut feeling that I mentioned before and how this correlates to the brain, and just why this might be titled something like healthy gut, happy body. So you have emotions tied in here. So this doesn't really point at anything specific, but microbiota changes. So that could be if your diet changes, gut epithelial breakdown can happen next, which is where we hear that term leaky gut, and you see actually the gut wall begin to develop these holes in it. So then your food can leak out, not be digested properly, and cause an issue. And then we have the immune activation, which is kind of like the beginning of an autoimmune. Leaky gut really correlates directly to that. You have the inflammatory cytokine production, which we had Judy Mikovits talk all about the cytokine storm this morning. Then the blood-brain barrier breakdown. So it's now affecting neurotransmitters, those levels, the synaptic plasticity changes. This is getting into now what Dr. Orbach just talked about before me, changes, neural changes, behavioral and mood changes. And then this one is huge: stress or dietary or environmental triggers, which can be a big thing. Stress, say you have that, you're sick to your stomach, you have this gut-wrenching feeling. This is all how our GI tract can affect or influence the central nervous system. Okay, so I've said the word gut probably 50 times in this presentation already, but I found this infographic, which I thought was really useful, asking what is the gut. So it's not just your esophagus and your stomach, not just your small intestine and large intestine, but it also includes your gallbladder, your liver, and your pancreas, which I thought was interesting because we don't always think of those things as part of the gut. So it includes every organ involved in digesting food and processing it into waste. And it's the second lining of your gut, also called the second brain, which I've said before. So how is the gut connected to the brain? It can operate on its own and communicate back and forth with your actual brain, and they're connected in two main ways. So first, physically, the vagus nerve, which controls the messages to the gut, as well as the heart, lungs, and other vital organs, is the gut's direct connection to the brain. So we learned about that. And there's actually interesting things I've heard about the vagus nerve lately, where instead of taking an antidepressant or anti-anxiety, they actually do something where, I don't know if it's they just snip it or they actually physically alter the vagus nerve. So it changes those neurologic effects that people have, like anxiety or depression, which is just crazy. Next is chemically. So the gut also connects with the brain through chemicals like hormones and what we've been talking about, neurotransmitters that send messages. So two ways that it's connected, very powerful though. We see the gut-brain axis, and then this is, again, going back and forth for both of them. So you have the brain, you have the gut, you have all that bacteria, and the ability of the brain to influence the gut, and you also have the gut's microbiota ability to influence the brain and behavior and mood and all of that. So that just shows that it goes, and again, this one shows it goes both ways. So I'm just really trying to emphasize that if you're having mood issues, it could be affecting your gut, or you could be causing those mood issues by what you're doing to the gut. So I'm going to start on this right side here. The gut can affect the brain by what we're eating, because when we eat, receptors in the gut cause the release of enzymes to aid in digestion. We have these gut cells, probiotics, bacteria, sending signals to the brain through these nerves, like I just mentioned, hormones and neurotransmitters. And another big one is the gut produces 60 to 90% of neurotransmitters involved in your mental wellness, including dopamine and serotonin. So like I said, we've been hearing a lot lately about like 70-80% of the immune system being formed in the gut. We're now seeing, we're also looking at 60 to 90% of the neurotransmitters being formed in the gut. And then the brain can affect the gut, like butterflies in our stomach. When we feel love or anxiousness, happiness, whatever it can be, fear or sadness can make us sick to our stomach, and acute stress can affect the gut, and also increase appetite, cravings for comfort foods, stress eating. So those are just some examples that I think we've all felt before, where our gut can affect our mood and the brain can affect the gut. So I thought that was cool to point out. This is a good infographic. And this is, again, just laying it out. If you have heartburn, cramps, loose stools, that could be related to stress. And again, sometimes I think people notice that it comes and goes. And it could be dependent on what you're eating, maybe if you're sensitive to acidic foods, but a lot of times I see it's related to stress. And if you just focus on the Great Pyramid of Health that I showed before in your foundations, that can be a really big change. So I encourage you to get the next issue of the Holistic Truth, focusing on recharging your brain. And this is brand new, so I just pulled 2 pages from it, but there's about 30 other pages in here of awesome information. And we're looking at these 2 things here that can be really beneficial to your mood and your, just your brain health. And we see sugar destroys the brain, and we know that excess sugar is harmful. But sugar, although rewarding, is also highly inflammatory to the brain and body. You have that like pain and pleasure thing with sugar and certain foods. And the brain only sees that reward of it and will seek out that behavior again and keep sending those signals, even though it's causing a negative issue in other areas of the body. Again, your brain is about 75% water, so the more dehydrated we are, the more issues that we will have. And that's something that I talk to people about all the time. I'm at the end of my water here. I've been sitting here for almost 2 hours and it's gone already. So always important to stay hydrated and focus on some of these things because they're the foundations. And then last, I want to talk about just 3 products here on top of the probiotics, GI Complete. And this is something that I heard a couple years ago from Dr. Len Branswitz, who's a fantastic doctor that we work very close with. And he said that if you blindly gave out a supplement to patients, which we would never do, but we're just saying that no matter what their symptoms are, if you gave them a bottle of GI Complete and had them finish the bottle in 30 days, a lot of their symptoms, no matter what they are, would go away. So, and that's because there's some of the main issues. Most people have issues with digestion, immune function, and stress. So this can be really beneficial, helping people with those issues. This is one of our most powerful products for the gut. If you actually have an issue outside of probiotics. So I address probiotics as more of a foundation, but this would be more of a condition-specific issue product. So very great. Calm Day, this is a good one. Can also be beneficial for sleep, but we highlight this one for anxiety, cognitive function, whether that's just your mood, your alertness, and also stress. And it has some ingredients here like GABA, theanine, and then just your basic aminos and B vitamins to really help with the brain connections to the gut. So like I said, because it's affecting the neurotransmitters, which are built in the gut. So you've got to make sure that, the gut's in place with good bacteria, and then you can support those neurotransmitters, which will have a very positive effect on the on the brain. And then if you're looking for more immune support, you'll see that, the Immunimax can really help with proper immune function. But like we said, if your immune system is weakened and you don't have good gut flora where your immune system is going to be formed, it's going to be really tough sometimes for these products to work. But or to build your immune system back up, or to help balance your neurotransmitters in your brain. But these are 3 really key products here that we highlight. And just looking at these different infographics that I found, they're all highlighting the same thing. And this one especially, they affect each other just as much. So it's important, as important it is for our mental health to be strong and stable, especially at a time like this where it's been all over the place lately for a lot of people. We have to make sure we're doing the right thing for our gut as well. So I thought this was a good topic, relative, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. So I just want to say, make sure that if you watch this video through a friend's page or someone who shared it, make sure you go to the Weiner Wellness Center page and like the page so you can follow along, because we got a whole week coming up of information. So thanks everyone for listening, and look forward to the rest of the week with you guys.